you got a Bible and you want to follow along with us, we're going to be in Luke 15 this morning. We're going to start at verse 27. And before we jump in, I just want to point out a couple of things that are going to help us kind of get in the zone for what's going on here. If your Bible has those little headers above sections like mine does, this section probably says something like the prodigal son. Anybody got a Bible that probably has a header like that? Yeah, prodigal son. Probably easily one of the most famous titles in the entire Bible. There's people that have never read this story that are very familiar with that title. And I think those headers are awesome. I mean, they help you find your place. They help you get what's going on in the overarching narrative of Scripture. They give us context for what's happening. But I want to point out to you that those headers, those little titles above Scripture, that was not in the original manuscript. That's something that was added later. But the original storyteller, the one who told this story in the first place, Jesus, he did not refer to this parable as the parable of the prodigal son. And I think that if there's a downside to that title at all, it's that it kind of preconditions us to focus on one son in this story. He kind of gets the headline, grabs our attention. We kind of focus on that younger brother, the prodigal, the one that ran away. But Jesus tells us right out the gate, this is not a one-son story. There's two sons here. And when you step back and you look at why this story was told in the first place and who Jesus wants to address through the telling and the major points that he wants to try to make, it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly that the core lesson is not built around the younger brother. It's really the older brother that Jesus wants to speak to here. The attitudes and the behaviors that Jesus wants to point out are those of the golden child, the responsible one, the one that did not blow his life up in epic fashion and just completely go off the rails and run away from home. So I kind of want to pull our focus toward him this morning. I want to go straight to his reaction when the news breaks that his rebellious, immoral, ungrateful little brother is back home. And you know, when he gets this news, check out where he's at. He's out in his father's fields, like he always is, working, like he's always doing. And this servant comes and tells him, well, your brother's back, and your father's killed the fattened calf, and we're celebrating because of his safe return. And the Bible says that he was angry, and he wouldn't go in. And I want to be very honest with you this morning up front. He had plenty of reasons to be furious, not just angry. Furious, as I think that we're going to see. And his father, who clearly represents God in this story, came out and begged him. But he replied, in all these years I've slaved for you, and you never once refused to do a single thing. Sorry, let me read that again. All these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing that you told me to. Important to note, even though I butchered the scripture, that's exactly right. That's very true. What he just pointed out was true. Dad doesn't disagree with him. So he keeps talking. He says, in all that time, you never even gave me one young goat to feast with my friends. And again, I want you to see, absolutely true, factually correct. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering all of your money on prostitutes, and again, factually true, absolutely correct, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf. And that's exactly what was happening in that moment. I want you to see every single thing that he says checks out. It's right as right can be, factually speaking. And yet at the same time, he is becoming less like the Father with every word that goes out of his mouth. He's exactly right and totally wrong. That's the title of my message today. Would you turn to somebody and tell them he's exactly right, but he's totally wrong. So how did we get here? I mean, how did it come to this? How did it get to the place where the older brother is just done? Done with everybody, done with his brother, done with the whole situation? Well, to answer that, you'd have to back up a little bit, rewind all the way to the beginning of the story. And when you do, you will land in one of the most uncomfortable, cringeworthy, downright awkward moments in the entire Bible. I mean, it is awkward. Now, y'all, I don't know how well that you handle awkward moments, you know, when stuff gets tense and somebody says something and it like throws the whole room off and we're all just kind of cringing and looking at each other like, what do we do now? Like, what happens now? I don't know if you do well with that. I'm just going to tell you, I don't love those moments. I don't love them. In fact, that probably is one of my least favorite things on planet Earth is awkward moments. And my wife knows the second that it hits me. She knows the second that this is starting to, because I got built-in reflexes that kick in. I'm not trying to. It is just unconscious and immediate. First thing that happens if awkwardness is unfolding in front of me, my eyes hit the floor. Like if I can somehow break eye contact, I'm not a part of whatever's happening. I mean, I'll pull out my phone and open the calculator app if I have to do something. And the second thing that happens, and this is the God's truth, it really is, if it's bad enough, I will start interceding in that moment out loud for what is, Jesus help him, Jesus help me, help us all, help, like literally, it will happen. Like every now and again, I see one of those videos pop across my YouTube feed and it's a real moment from a church service and it's entitled something like When Testimony Service Goes Wrong or Church Mic Fails Caught on Camera. I'm here to tell you I cannot even kind of watch something like the thumbnail like puts me in a whole body cringe. Like I just can't do it. Even if it happened 15 years ago in a church I've never been to, in a state I'll never go to, I can't handle that. Now I know some of y'all are exactly the opposite from me. I'm saying like there's drama breaking out and I'm like, get me out of here. And y'all are like, break out the popcorn. Let me pull my chair up. This is getting good. I don't know how you do it, but I know I got friends that will live text me about awkwardness playing out in front of them. Yo, bro, it's getting crazy in here. She just threw her shoe. They're yelling. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you standing there? Right? I'd be 3 aisles over in the fetal position. Just, Jesus, help them. Help me. Help us all. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you don't have a high tolerance for awkward situations, you would not have enjoyed having a front row seat to watch this story unfold, because it is awkward in the extreme what happens here. In fact, it's not just uncomfortable, it's really highly offensive. It's offensive if you don't know anything about Jewish customs or culture. It's offensive. It's twice as offensive when you do really know culturally what's going on in this moment. There is a good reason the older brother was not ready to throw a welcome home party and go running down the driveway with dad and cry tears of joy. There's a reason. And before we just throw a label on him and just say, oh, he's judgmental, self-righteous, needs some family therapy and a nap or something like that, and then we just pretend like we got it all together and we would never do such a thing like that, maybe we need to take a minute to stand where he stood and feel what he's feeling and look at the giant mess that his brother made and then watch him get rewarded for that giant mess and maybe see if it wouldn't mess with your sense of what is right and what is fair. You know what I found out in my life? Mercy's easy when you don't know the details. When you're from a distance and you didn't have a front row seat to all that foolishness and you weren't the one that had to live with the consequences that they left behind. Oh, it's easy. But when you've had to pay while they got to play, when it's your family's reputation that they ruin, when it's your heart that's still hurting, when it's your trust that they broke, oh, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder. I'll add another layer on top of that. Mercy's harder still when you've had to deal with their foolishness for quite some time before the big blowout ever happened. How many know the prodigal didn't turn into a spoiled, selfish brat 5 minutes before he decided to get out of town? This dude's been dealing with this guy for years in his foolishness and his attitudes and his selfishness. And it's harder still when they do what you knew they would. You knew it was coming. And they finally do what you knew they would do. You saw it coming the whole time. You kept your mouth shut. You didn't want to say anything. You didn't want to cause any problems. You knew they would do it, though, but it turned out exactly like you thought that it would one day. And they did exactly what you thought they would do. It's a little harder at that point to get on the forgiveness train. A little bit easier to look at everybody that's telling you, just let it go, and think, you don't know the half of it. So even if you know this story inside and out, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that do this morning, I want to invite you to read it with me one more time, but I want you to switch your perspective and look at it through the eyes of that older brother. Here's how it started. A man had 2 sons, and the younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. And a few days later, his younger son packed all his belongings, moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all his money in wild living. And even if you don't know the first thing about Jewish culture and how important honor and shame are to these people's lives, you can tell this is wrong. I mean, everybody knows you don't get an inheritance until the person who's leaving it to you is gone off this earth. That's how it works. Well, this kid is saying publicly, mind you, in front of probably the entire household, I want your money more than I want you. And in fact, I wish you were already dead so I could have your money and do what I want with it. But since you're not dead, here's what we're going to do, Dad. You're going to leave me what's mine right now, and I'm going to leave. I'm going to turn my back on you. I'm going to turn my back on your household and your faith and your principles, and I'm leaving. Now, that's bad enough, but once you know the culture, it gets worse, because wealth isn't stored in bank accounts at this time. Dad can't just pull up to an ATM and make a withdrawal and pay out the younger brother. He can't just have a cashier's check cut and give him what he wanted. Wealth was in land during this time, and in the crops that it produced, and in the cattle that it sustained. Wealth was in land, property that had probably been passed down from generation to generation, maybe even as far back as these folks' ancestors when they first inherited the promised land and came in to settle this area. It could have been a part of the family since way back then. Land was not just where they lived, it was their family's legacy. It's what told the next generation, this is where you come from, and this is who you are. And it was the kind of thing that a father would want to have left intact. He would want his grandkids to run through the same fields and build homes on the same soil and carry the family forward. That's what a father would have wanted. You know, by law, land was supposed to stay in the family. By law. You didn't sell it unless you were desperate, unless you were dying, or unless your household was falling apart. Well, there was probably only one way to give this guy the amount of money he wanted in the time frame that he wanted it, which was immediately, because land was always at a premium. He probably had to liquidate some of his family estates, sell it off, give him the money, and lose that property forever. So when the prodigal left, I want you to understand, this was not just a personal decision. This affected everybody in that household. He left his family with less resources, less to build on, less to pass down, less help to manage it all so he could go away and have a good time. And when he cashed out and left, he was having a blast, but the fallout was just starting for the family that he left behind, because this thing would not have stayed a secret. This was a rural community. Everybody knew everybody, and people would have known that land had changed hands, and people would have put the pieces together pretty quickly. And can't you just hear the talk around the well in the morning? What, did you hear what happened? I heard he took off. Did you know his dad sold part of the family land to fund it? Shameful. Shameful. I always knew that boy was trouble. You know, it's probably because they didn't raise him right. Whole family's toxic. And just like that, Dad's name starts getting dragged through the mud. And guess who else is associated with Dad's name? That older brother. And the family reputation starts slipping. Not just in the eyes of strangers, but in the eyes of neighbors. People that they worked with and worshiped with and prayed with and shared meals with. This was not just a personal failure. It was public shame. And guess who had to live with it? Not the prodigal. He's off having a grand old time. New city, new friends, lots of fun, not thinking about nobody. But that older brother had to walk into town every now and again for supplies. And every time he would stand in that market, he would hear those whispers. Maybe they didn't say it to him, but maybe just loud enough for him to hear what they were saying. You know, that's the one whose brother ran off right over there. The family that lost part of their land. You look at him right over there. That's why you don't miss synagogue on the Sabbath day, because you could end up. And that's funny, and it's a little outrageous, but it's not quite far from the truth in a society like this. Oh, no, because family failings did not stay personal. They became part of your public record. Anybody know how marriage works in this time period? It was a two-phase process. Phase one, you would get engaged or betrothed, and you would stay betrothed for quite some time until the father of the bride decided, okay, let's do this, and then everybody gets married. Do you know what would have happened to that older brother if he had been betrothed in this time when this happened, and the dad of that bride heard about this family scandal, and he would have said, we're not tying our name to that, it's over. There could have been many implications for that guy in this situation. Well, if the prodigal leaving was enough to get everybody talking, once they found out where he went, oh no, we going up another level. Now, once it gets out, this was the kind of tea that people couldn't wait to pass around. Now, if you're not on TikTok and you are over 35, tea is what the cool kids call gossip these days. I just learned this recently. You're welcome. Blessed you this morning. Oh, it probably started to die down a little bit. You know, he'd been gone for a while, but then somebody saw him and figured out where he was going, and they brought that back to the well in the morning. Fellas, you know he left. You know where he went? He's living in Gentile territory. I talked to a guy this morning, he's a merchant, just came back from that city, said he saw the dude drunk in the middle of the street, blowing all his family's money on parties, dancing with foreigners. I mean, it's bad, because the prodigal didn't just leave the house, he didn't just leave the village, he left Israel entirely. He walked away from covenant community, everything sacred, everything clean. He just balled it up like it was trash and threw it away. Crossed into Gentile lands, unclean territory during this time, where idolatry was everywhere, where the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was just one more name in a sea of gods. And to a Jewish audience, this was not just geographical distance, this was spiritual rebellion that was happening here. It meant walking out of the blessing, walking away from identity, trading everything holy for everything worldly. And again, got to hear it, the older brother stayed in the house, stayed in the land, stayed in the covenant. He stayed. Well, we don't know exactly how long the prodigal was gone. The Bible doesn't explicitly tell us that, but we get some clues. He was gone long enough to burn through a lot of money, probably. He was gone long enough to live through a famine. He was gone long enough to have to take a job feeding pigs, which to a Jewish audience is just the epitome of rock bottom. I mean, the lowest of the low. So this was not a weekend trip. This was not just a few days to find himself. This was not a short-lived rebellion. He was gone for a while. Did you know, here's what we usually don't think about during that time period, because the Bible has us squarely focused on the prodigal. But life didn't hit pause for that older brother either during that time period. He had a full schedule of responsibilities and no little brother to help him with it. He had to get up and go on just like we do, even when bad things happen. Amen, somebody? Humiliated or not, resentful or not, still mad? The alarm clock just rung. Be mad. Still hurting? So what? Got animals to feed. Better get up. You still waiting on an apology? Oh, that's awesome. Grab a shovel. Let's go this way. And the sun comes up, and so does your to-do list. And you know how it goes. Over time, things start to settle a little bit. You know how it goes. Not because everything is okay, but because life has a way of moving on even when you haven't. And you just bury yourself in routine, and the frustration and the hurt and the pain, it all just kind of blends in to the background. Doesn't go away entirely, but it gets quieter, gets more manageable. He probably said to himself 100 times something like, you know what, this isn't fair, but it is what it is. How many love that phrase? It is what it is. You know, family's still afloat. Dad's doing all right most days. We'll take most days. I'm holding everything together, so that's good. We're not about to go belly up. Still got a house. Great. So I've accepted it. You know, people make their choices. And you just gotta move on. Now, sure, it bugged him when Dad stared down the road just a little too long. And it surely bugged him when Dad brought up little brother's name around the dinner table and prayed for him. He probably didn't like that too much. And when he left the porch light on again, he probably didn't like that too much. And he definitely had this thought a time or two. You know what? I wish he thought about me half as much while I'm here as he does about this joker that's gone. Because we're going to see that thought surface. He definitely was having that thought. But he's managing it until the bomb drops. And he's back. And everything that he thought he had buried deep inside himself comes flooding back to the surface in a second. And he is triggered. Boy, that word's having a moment in our society. He's triggered. And you know, honestly, I wonder if you've ever had a moment like that. Somebody hurt you deeply in the past maybe, but you're doing okay. You're trying to be mature about it. You've forgiven them. At least you've done the best you can to forgive them, and you're still every now and again forgiving them again because it comes up in your mind. But you've moved on. You are above it all, or so you think. And then you see them, or their name pops up on your phone, or you hear their voice in a room, or you hear them laughing like nothing ever happened, like they didn't set your life on fire. Like they didn't blow up everything in a heap. And you realize in a split second, oh, I'm not as good with this as I thought I was. I thought I was a lot better than where I'm at right now. And you know that heat that rises up? You might know what I'm talking about, that tension that like starts right in your neck. You just know, oh, no, this is not good. Well, if you can imagine yourself in a moment like that, you know maybe kind of what this older brother might have been feeling when he's hit with the news. Hey, your brother's back. Now, from the little bit that we know about this dude, he seems to be fairly responsible, level-headed, seems to be the epitome of the kind of guy that tries not to let his emotions get the better of him, stay calm. So maybe his first thought was, okay, whoa, don't jump to conclusions. Who knows why this guy's back? Probably wants more money. Well, Dad's not falling for that one again. In fact, if he is going to stay here, probably going to be stripped of every privilege he ever had. This actually might even be fun to watch. But then that servant keeps talking. Oh, your dad's throwing a party like you never seen, man. Can you hear the music? You hear that? You smell that? You smell the roast cooking? You know, he's invited everybody in the community. You know, all those people have been talking about us. They're here. And he even gave the dude his position. He gave your brother his position back in the house. Gave him the robe, the ring, the sandals, all the symbols of sonship. Man, he's fully restored. And at that point, the words just blur. Wait, you said what? What? And then the bottom drops out. And he's seeing red. This rebel, this ingrate, this dude that left everybody is now being celebrated more for leaving than I ever was for staying. Oh, yeah? Nobody ever threw me a party like this. Nobody ever had music in my honor. Nobody ever roasted a calf for me. Nobody ever said, you held this family together. Thank you for doing more than your fair share. Thank you for doing things that you didn't even have to do. That didn't get a celebration. That didn't get a calf. Didn't even get a goat. But the guy who left and embarrassed his whole family and cost us land and dignity and reputation, this is the guy that gets a party. And then the servant keeps talking. Hey, man, you coming? Your dad sent me to get you. Wants you to be a part of all this. They're all waiting for you up there. Oh, can't you just see him? And this was the moment. This was when the straw broke the camel's back. It happened right here. And if it's me, like, probably starts laughing. Am I coming? Am I coming? Are you joking? No, I'm not coming. I'm done. I'm done with the chores. I'm done with the business. I'm done picking up the slack. I'm done being talked about. I'm done being second best. I'm done with my brother. And if this is how my father wants to handle this, if this is his idea of justice, Maybe I'm done with him too. He's absolutely encased in bitterness at this point, encased in it. Can't even hear the Father, won't hear the Father. Now, there's a point right here that I want you to see, because we tend to think that bitterness and hatred and resentment only show up when someone misunderstands the situation, when they're wrong, when they've made assumptions that aren't true, when they're blowing things out of proportion. But that's not what's happening here. The older brother wasn't making things up, and he wasn't twisting anything out of the facts. Everything he said about that prodigal checked out. He did take the money. He did waste it on wild living. He did shame his family and walk away, and he was being celebrated. So you got to know, when he's standing in those fields with his arms crossed and his jaw clenched and his heart closed, he's not wrong about the facts. This is where you got to hear it, though. Here's the hard truth. You can be exactly right and still totally wrong. You can be right in your assessment, but wrong in your spirit. You can be right about the details, but wrong about the walls that you're putting up around your heart. You can be right about boundaries, but wrong about your bitterness. You can be right about how much it hurt, but wrong to hold on to that hurt like a trophy. You can be right about what they did, but you can be wrong about what they deserve. So when Dad shows up, he's still standing there seething, angry, closed, bitter, and done. Is his state when Dad shows up. And again, there's a lesson here. I need you to see this. We tend to think of the prodigal as the only son that was shown mercy in this parable. But look again, because the father could have rushed out to rebuke his older son. He definitely had earned it. At this point, he's proud. He's hard-hearted. He's disobedient. He's arrogant. Now he's rebelling against the father. But he doesn't do any of that. The Bible said he runs to him and pleads with him. He ran to the one that broke the rules, but look at it. He also ran to the one that kept all the rules and is now bitter and burned out and physically present, but emotionally and spiritually disconnected. The Father ran to him too. Can I tell you, grace is not just for the ones who blew it, it's also for the ones who bottled it up and are fighting a battle with bitterness on the inside that nobody knows anything about. The Father will run to you too. So his father came out and begged him, look, dear son. You hear that language that he uses? You've always stayed by me. There's a thank you implicit in that. And everything that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate this because your brother was dead. And now he's come back to life, and he was lost. But now he's found. And can you hear what he's saying? You're right about some of the things that your brother did, but you are wrong about how you're responding. There's a way to deal with what's happening here, but this isn't it. Don't disconnect from the family. Don't disconnect from me. You're right about some things, but you're oh so very wrong about some things. Can I be honest with you about something I've learned over time? Some of the times that I've been the most closed off to what God was trying to tell me or show me was because I was convinced I was right. Because when you're sure you're right, you stop listening, and you stop softening, and you stop letting the Spirit speak to you. Hear me now. If you do it long enough, if you hold on to how right you are, eventually becoming right becomes your identity. It becomes your shield. Becomes the way that you justify staying distant and angry and closed and stuck. There comes a point when being right starts to become more important than being like Jesus. And when that happens, we're in trouble. Because you might be standing on some part of the truth, but you're not standing in love anymore, and bitterness will begin to take its toll on you. Can I tell you, bitterness is so easy to pick up, and it is so very hard to get out of your heart once you have. And what it will do to you is as predictable as it is destructive. First, it will harden your thoughts, and then it will harden your heart, and then it will change your tone, and then it will creep its way into every conversation that you have, and it will shade the way that you see people, and it will steer your decisions, and you will be less and less like Jesus, and you will be less and less concerned about it. And you'll find yourself being less loving and more hateful, and less faith-filled and more angry, and less joyful and more negative, all while potentially being right as right could be, factually speaking. And I tell you that while I was working on this week, I felt the heart of the Father reaching for some right people. And I don't know if they're sitting in the house this morning, if they're watching this on live stream, and maybe they'll hear this at some point in the future. Don't know who exactly this is for, but could I talk to somebody whose marriage is in trouble? And when we get right down to it, it's not just the disappointments. It's not just the apologies that never came, or the broken trust, or the poor communication that's causing problems. Can I tell you, those things are real, and they're painful, and they're difficult. But all of those things I just mentioned can be worked through. They can be turned around. Do you know what cannot be turned around? Do you know what can't be worked through? It's when somebody becomes obsessed with being right, so much so that they will not budge an inch, and winning becomes more important than the relationship, and they slowly start to drift away from mercy, and they start to drift towards judgment, and they lean into that inner lawyer that's always building the case, always speaking the facts, always assuring them that they're right. And it gets to the point that they feel fully justified in closing their heart. Well, if that's you, wherever you are, can I come to you on behalf of the Father this morning, who is reaching for you and pleading with you, and ask you, maybe you are right about some of it or all of it. Here's the question. What is that rightness doing to your spirit? What is that rightness doing to your home? What's that rightness doing to your other relationships? What is that rightness doing to your witness and to your heart? What's that rightness doing to your walk with God? Are you exactly right and totally wrong? Can I talk to some parents this morning of some grown children? Again, maybe here, maybe online. Maybe you'll listen to this in the future. Maybe you have kids now and they'll get older later, and maybe some part of this message will come back to you, but you find yourself in a moment where you're heartbroken over choices that your son or your daughter is making, and you see them heading down a road that you know is not right, and you've warned them, and you've prayed for them, and you've tried to guide them, and it does not look like any of it is working right now. And truth be told, yeah, you're heartbroken, but you're also furious about it. You're not wrong in what you're seeing. You're not wrong to be concerned. You're certainly not wrong to hold to the truth. It is hard when they're distant. It is hard when they are defiant. It is hard when they're saying and doing things that cut deep. It's hard to do things that you know will result in pain for them and pain for you, because you're tied to the whole mess and you can't do anything about it. It's hard. It's upsetting. But can I ask you something hard this morning? Is it possible that part of the anger that you're feeling isn't just about their lifestyle choices, but it's also about how those choices reflect on you, and how it makes you look, and how it makes you feel like a failure as a parent? Oh, it's hard to speak with love in difficult seasons. You're talking to a father of 4 right here. I know all about it. It's hard. But when we lead with love, even in hard situations, when we speak with grace, when we're gentle and we're self-controlled, and we don't say everything that we could, and we certainly don't say it in the way that we could, and we're prayerful and gentle, can I tell you what we're doing? We're keeping the door open to restoration. We're refusing to close our hearts so that the Father can reach theirs. We're making sure there's a way back home, and that door is still open, and they know they're still loved. But if you've been there, you know love is not the only emotion that wants to grab the wheel during those seasons. Nope. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of losing control. Fear. Fear of what people will think. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's, I want to win this argument more than I want to win this person. Can I tell you, seasons like this will show you some things about you. And if that happens, and we start sounding a lot more like the older brother than the father, we start saying things in those heated moments out of our rightness. Some of those times, those things are hard things. They're final things. They're words that you can't come back from easily. They create distance and they close doors. Things like, if this is the path that you're choosing, don't you ever expect to be welcome in this house again? Or if this is how you're going to live, then to me, I don't even have a son anymore. I don't have a daughter anymore. You made your bed, now you lie in it. Can I tell you, there are no winners in that kind of war right there. Because whatever you gain in dignity, you will lose in connection, you will lose in relationship, you will lose in reconciliation, you will lose the very things that your heart yearns for, all while being as right as you could be. One more. Could I talk to some people this morning, honestly, who have suffered real injustice? Wasn't imagined. It was real. You've been mistreated at the hands of a person or even a group of people that should have known better. And truth be told, it's still lingering in here. It's still lingering. And you're right. They did abuse their power. And they crossed lines. And they did things that still linger today and affect you today. And you were right to expect better. That's absolutely right. There were some things that should not have happened that absolutely did happen to you. Or maybe there were some things that should have happened for you that never did, and it wasn't right. And it wasn't fair. But can I come on the behalf of the Father this morning and ask you, what is that rightness doing to your soul? What is that rightness doing to your relationship with Jesus, the one who bore every injustice and said, Father, forgive them? Is it getting harder to pray because you're so right? Is it getting harder to worship because you're so right? Is the idea of love and mercy almost offensive to you? Because it's like it lets them off and they win. Well, here's the truth. You can be right about what happened and still slowly be becoming someone that you were never called to be. You can put yourself in a place where God cannot speak to you because you won't hear him. You can put yourself in a place where God cannot use you in the way that he wants to. And it's not because you're not gifted. It's not because you're not capable. It's because you're closed and you're hardened and you're guarded. And you're clinging to your rightness like it's your righteousness. Would you stand with me all over this room? Would you bow your heads and close your eyes right now? I didn't have the time to talk all afternoon, but we could have about situations where you were right. Maybe it wasn't even a person. It was just a situation that happened in life, and you're right. It's not fair that you had to deal with it. Could I ask you the same question? What is that rightness doing to your walk with God? Right now, there's no spotlight. Everybody got your eyes closed, head bowed. I got my eyes closed. This is just a private moment between you and Jesus. If there's any area of your life, something I named, something I didn't, where you're right, but you don't like what it's doing to your spirit, would you just raise your hand? It's just a moment between you and Jesus. Nobody else. It's just a way to tell him, Lord, that's me, and I need your help. I want out of that. You can lower your hands. Thank you. Thank you. I want you to know today that Jesus can help you, and Jesus can heal you, and he is running to you in this moment. And I wonder if there's something that we could do today as a family so that nobody feels singled out and nobody feels like they're telling on themselves, I wonder if we could all start making our way to this altar right now, and we could all start collectively laying down our rightness, and we could all start picking up the Father's mercy instead, and we could lay down our need to win, and we could begin to prioritize our relationship with the Lord. Somebody needs to say, Jesus, I didn't start out to become this way. You know it. This was not my intention. I didn't mean to land here, but I followed the facts, and I don't like what it's doing in my life right now. I don't like what it's doing in me right now. So I'll tell you what, if I'm right or if I'm not, in this moment I choose mercy. I choose it for you. I choose it for me because I want to be free. Somebody needs to let the Father reset some things in your life right now with mercy. Mercy, mercy. The Bible said love covers a multitude of sin. Why don't you let love cover some things right now that you're right about as they begin to play? Jesus, Jesus, have mercy. Have mercy. Maybe God's putting somebody on your mind right now. Maybe they're in this place. Maybe they're not. Maybe you know they're locked up with it right now. Why don't you begin to pray for them? Maybe God's putting somebody on your heart right now in this place. Maybe it's about something entirely different. Feel free, feel the liberty of God to minister to somebody. Maybe you want to gather with your family right now. Maybe you want to say, you know what? Being right is less important to me than loving you and loving God. Why don't we just have a moment where we're honest with the Lord?